He shrugs. Not sure. They're young, so being under general anesthesia for too long is a concern. He holds up his right hand and wiggles his fingers. But this is a very special hand that has been through almost $500,000 worth of specialty education. I have a lot of faith in this hand. I walk over to him and press my lips to his palm. I'm a little fond of this hand, too. He slides the hand down to my neck and then spins me so that I'm flush against the counter. I gasp, because I wasn't expecting that. He pushes himself against me from behind and slowly slides his hand down the side of my body. I press my palms into the granite and close my eyes, already feeling the rush of the wine. This hand, he whispers, is the steadiest hand in all of Boston. He pushes on the back of my neck, bending me further over the counter. His hand meets the inside of my knee and he glides it upward. Slowly. Jesus, he pushes my legs apart, and then his fingers are inside me. I moan and try to find something to hold on to. I grip the faucet just as he begins to work magic, and then, just like a magician, his hand disappears. I hear him walking out of the kitchen. I watch as he passes the front of the counter. He winks at me, downs the rest of his glass of wine and says, "I'm gonna take a quick shower." What a tease, you asshole. I yell after him, "I'm not an asshole," he yells from my bedroom. I'm a highly trained neurosurgeon. I laugh and pour myself another glass of wine. I'll show him who the tease really is. I'm on my third glass of wine when he walks out of my bedroom. I'm on the phone with my mother, so I watch him from the couch as he makes his way to the kitchen and pours himself another glass. That is some seriously good wine. What are you doing tonight? My mother asks. Have her on speakerphone. Ryle is leaning against a wall, watching me talk to her. Not much. Helping Ryle study. That sounds not very interesting, she says. Ryle winks at me. It's actually very interesting, I say to her. I help him study a lot. Mostly reviewing fine motor control of the hands. In fact, we'll probably be up all night studying. The 3 glasses of wine has made me frisky. I can't believe I'm flirting with him while I'm on the phone with my mother. Gross, I gotta go, I tell her. We're taking Alyssa and Marshall out to dinner tomorrow night, so I'll call you on Monday. Oh, where are you taking them? I roll my eyes. The woman can't take a hint. I don't know. Ryle, where are we taking them? That place we went to that one time with your mom, he says. Bibs. I made reservations for 6 o'clock. My heart feels like it slinks down my chest. My mother says, "Oh, good choice." Yeah. If you like stale bread. Bye, Mom. I hang up and look at Ryle. I don't want to go back there. I didn't like it. Let's try something new. I fail to tell him why I really don't want to go back there. But how do you tell your brand new boyfriend that you're trying to avoid your first love? Ryle pushes off the wall. You'll be fine, he says. Alyssa's excited to eat there. I told her all about it. Maybe I'll get lucky and Atlas won't be working. Speaking of food, Ryle says. I'm starving. The casserole, oh shit. I say, laughing. Ryle rushes to the kitchen and I stand up and follow him in there. I walk in just as he pulls the oven door open and waves away the smoke. Ruined. I get dizzy all of a sudden from standing up too fast after having 3 glasses of wine. I grab the counter beside him to steady myself, just as he reaches in to pull the burnt casserole out. Ryle. You need it, shit, he yells, pot holder. The casserole falls from his hand and lands on the floor, shattering everywhere. I lift up my feet to avoid broken glass and mushroom chicken splatter. I start laughing as soon as I realize he didn't even think to use a pot holder. Must be the wine. This is some seriously strong wine. He slams the oven shut and moves to the faucet, shoving his hand under the cold water, muttering curse words. I'm trying to suppress my laughter, but the wine and the ridiculousness of the last few seconds are making it hard. I look at the floor, at the mess we're about to have to clean up, and the laughter bursts from me. I'm still laughing as I lean over to get a look at Ryle's hand. I hope he didn't hurt it too bad. I'm instantly not laughing anymore. I'm on the floor, my hand pressed against the corner of my EYE. In a matter of 1 second, Ryle's arm came out of nowhere and slammed against me, knocking me backward. There was enough force behind it to knock me off balance. When I lost my footing, I hit my face on one of the cabinet door handles as I came down. Pain shoots through the corner of my eye, right near my temple, and then I feel the weight heaviness follows and it presses down on every part of me. So much gravity, pushing down on my emotions. Everything shatters. My tears, my heart, my laughter, my soul. Shattered like broken glass, raining down around me. I wrap my arms over my head and try to wish away the last 10 seconds. God damn it, Lily, I hear him say. It's not funny. This hand is my fucking career. I don't look up at him. His voice doesn't penetrate through my body this time. It feels like it's stabbing me now, the sharpness of each of his words coming at me like swords. Then I feel him next to me, his goddamn hand on my back rubbing. Lily, he says. Oh, God. Lily. He tries to pull my arms from my head, but I refuse to budge. I start shaking my head, wanting the last 15 seconds to go away. 15 seconds. That's all it takes to completely change everything about a person. 15 seconds that will never get back, pulls me against him and starts kissing the top of my head. I'm so sorry. I burned my hand. I panicked. You were laughing and... I'm so sorry, it all happened so fast. I didn't mean to push you, Lily, I'm sorry. I don't hear Ryle's voice this time. All I hear is my father's voice. I'm sorry, Jenny. It was an accident. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Lily. It was an accident. I'm so sorry. I just want him away from me. I use every ounce of strength I have in both my hands and legs and I force him the fuck away from me. He falls backward, onto his hands. His eyes are full of genuine sorrow, but then they're full of something else, worry? Panic. He slowly pulls up his right hand and it's covered in blood. Blood is trickling out of his palm, down his wrist. I look at the floor, at the shattered pieces of glass from the casserole dish. His hand. I just pushed him onto glass. He turns around and pulls himself up. He sticks his hand under the stream of water and starts rinsing away the blood. I stand up, just as he pulls a sliver of glass out of his palm and tosses it on the counter. I'm full of so much anger, but somehow, concern for his hand still finds its way out. I grab a towel and shove it into his fist. There's so much blood. It's his right hand, his surgery Monday. I try to help stop the bleeding, but I'm shaking too bad. Ryle, your hand. He pulls the hand away and, with his good hand, he lifts my chin. Fuck the hand, Lily. I don't care about my hand. Are you okay? He's looking back and forth between my eyes frantically as he assesses the cut on my face. My shoulders begin to shake and huge, hurt-filled tears spill down my cheeks. No, I'm a little in shock, and I know he can hear my heart breaking with just that one word, because I can feel it in every part of me. Oh my God. You pushed me, Ryle. The realization of what has just happened hurts worse than the actual action. Ryle wraps his arm around my neck and desperately holds me against him. I'm so sorry, Lily. God, I'm so sorry. He buries his face against my hair, squeezing me with every emotion inside of him. Please don't hate me. Please. His voice slowly starts to become Ryle's voice again, and I feel it in my stomach, in my toes. His entire career depends on his hand, so it has to say something that he's not even worried about it. Right? I'm so confused, there's too much happening. The smoke, the wine, the broken glass, the food splattered everywhere, the blood, the anger, the apologies, it's too much. I'm so sorry, he says again. I pull back and his eyes are red, and I've never seen him look so sad. I panicked. I didn't mean to push you away, I just panicked. All I could think about was the surgery Monday and my hand and... I'm so sorry. He presses his mouth to mine and breathes me in. He's not like my father. He can't be. He's nothing like that uncaring bastard. We're both upset and kissing and confused and sad. I've never felt anything like this moment, so ugly and painful. But somehow the only thing that eases the hurt just caused by this man is this man. My tears are soothed by his sorrow, my emotions soothed with his mouth against mine, his hand gripping me like he never wants to let go. Feel his arms go around my waist and he picks me up, carefully stepping through the mess we've made. I can't tell if I'm more disappointed in him or myself. Him for losing his temper in the first place or me for somehow finding comfort in his apology. He carries me and kisses me all the way to my bedroom. He's still kissing me when he lowers me to the bed and whispers, "I'm sorry, Lily." He moves his lips to the spot on my eye that hit the cabinet, and he kisses me there. I'm so sorry. His mouth is on mine again, hot and wet, and I don't even know what's happening to me. I'm hurting so much on the inside, yet my body craves his apology in the form of his mouth and hands on me. I want to lash out at him and react like I always wish my mother would have reacted when my father hurt her, but deep down I want to believe that it really was an accident. Ryle isn't like my father. He's nothing like him. I need to feel his sorrow. His regret. I get both of these things in the way he kisses me. I spread my legs for him and his sorrow comes in another form. Slow, apologetic thrusts inside of me. Every time he enters me, he whispers another apology. And by some miracle, every time he pulls out of me, my anger leaves with him. He's kissing my shoulder, my cheek, my eye. He's still on top of me, touching me gently. I've never been touched like this, with such tenderness. I try to forget what happened in the kitchen, but it's everything right now. He pushed me away from him. Ryle pushed me. For 15 seconds, I saw a side of him that wasn't him. That wasn't me. I laughed at him when I should have been concerned. He shoved me when he should have never touched me. I pushed him away and caused him to cut his hand. It was awful. The whole thing, the entire 15 seconds it lasted, was absolutely awful. I never want to think about it again. Still has the rag balled up in his hand and it's soaked with blood. I push against his chest. I'll be right back, I tell him. He kisses me one more time and rolls off of me. I walk to the bathroom and close the door. I look in the mirror and gasp, blood. In my hair, on my cheeks, on my body. It's all his blood. I grab a rag and try to wash some off, and then I look under the sink for the first aid kit. I have no idea how bad his hand is. First he burned it, then he sliced it open. Not even an hour after he was just telling me how important this surgery was to him, and no more wine. We're never allowed vintage wine again. I grab the box from under the sink and open the bedroom door. He's walking back into the bedroom from the kitchen with a small bag of ice. He holds it up. For your eye, he says. I hold up the first aid kit. For your hand. We both smile and then sit back down on the bed. He leans against the headboard while I pull his hand to my lap. The whole time I'm dressing his wound, he's holding the bag of ice against my eye. I squeeze some antiseptic cream onto my finger and dab it against the burns on his fingers. They don't look as bad as I thought they might be, so that's a relief. Can you prevent it from blistering? I ask him. He shakes his head. Not if it's second degree. I want to ask him if he can still perform the surgery if his fingers have blisters on them come Monday, but I don't bring it up. I'm sure that's on the forefront of his mind right now. Do you want me to put some on your cut? He nods. The bleeding has stopped. I'm sure if he needed stitches, he'd get some, but I think it'll be fine. I pull the ACE bandage out of the first aid kit and begin wrapping his hand. Lily, he whispers. I look up at him. His head is resting against the headboard, and it looks like he wants to cry. I feel terrible, he says. If I could take it back, I know, I say, cutting him off. I know, Ryle. It was terrible. You pushed me. You made me question everything I thought I knew about you. But I know you feel bad about it. We can't take it back. I don't want to bring it up again. I secure the bandage around his hand and then look him in the eye. But Ryle? If anything like that ever happens again, I'll know that this time wasn't just an accident. And I'll leave you without a second thought. He stares at me for a long time, his eyebrows drawn apart in regret. He leans forward and presses his lips against mine. It won't happen again, Lily. I swear. I'm not like him. I know that's what you're thinking, but I swear to you, I shake my head, wanting him to stop. I can't take the pain in his voice. I know you're nothing like my father, I say. Just to please don't ever make me doubt you again. Please. He brushes hair from my forehead. You're the most important part of my life, Lily. I want to be what brings you happiness, not what causes you to hurt. He kisses me and then stands up and leans over me, pressing the ice to my face. Hold this here for about 10 more minutes. It'll prevent it from swelling. I replace his hand with mine. Where are you going? He kisses me on the forehead and says, to clean up my mess. He spends the next 20 minutes cleaning the kitchen. I can hear glass being tossed into the trash can, wine being poured out in the sink. I go to the bathroom and take a quick shower to get his blood off of me, and then I change the sheets on my bed. When he finally has the kitchen cleaned up, he comes to the bedroom with a glass. He hands it to me. It's soda, he says. The caffeine will help. I take a drink of it and feel it fizz down my throat. It's actually the perfect thing. I take another drink and set it on my nightstand. What's it help with? The hangover? Ryle slides into bed and pulls the covers over us. He shakes his head. No, I don't think soda actually helps anything. My mom just used to give me a soda after I'd had a bad day, and it always made me feel a little better. I smile. Well, it worked. He brushes his hand down my cheek, and I can see in his eyes and in the way he touches me that he deserves at least one chance at forgiveness. I feel if I don't find a way to forgive him, I'll somewhat be placing blame on him for the resentment I still hold for my father. He's not like my father. Ryle loves me. He's never come out and said it before, but I know he does. And I love him. What happened in the kitchen tonight is something I'm confident won't happen again. Not after seeing how upset he is that he hurt me. All humans make mistakes. What determines a person's character aren't the mistakes we make. It's how we take those mistakes and turn them into lessons rather than excuses. Ryle's eyes somehow grow even more sincere, and he leans over and kisses my hand. He settles his head into the pillow, and we just lie there, staring at each other, sharing this unspoken energy that fills all the holes the night has left in us. After a few minutes, he squeezes my hand. Lily, he says, brushing his thumb over mine. I'm in love with you. I feel his words in every part of me. And when I whisper, I love you, too, it's the most naked truth I've ever spoken to him. Chapter 15. I arrive at the restaurant 15 minutes late. Right when I was about to close tonight, I had a customer come in to order flowers for a funeral. I couldn't turn them away because, sadly, funerals are the best business for florists. Ryle waves me over to the table and I walk straight to them, doing my best not to look around. I don't want to see Atlas. I tried twice to get them to change the restaurant location, but Alyssa was hellbent on eating here after Ryle told her how good it was. I slide into the booth and Ryle leans over and kisses me on the cheek. Hey, girlfriend. Alyssa groans. God, you guys are so cute, it's sickening. I smile at her, and her eyes immediately go to the corner of my eye. It doesn't look as bad as I thought it might today, which is probably due to Ryle forcing me to keep ice on it. Oh my God, Alyssa says. Ryle told me what happened, but I didn't think it was that bad. I glance at Ryle, wondering what he told her. The truth? He smiles and says, olive oil was everywhere. When she slipped, it was so graceful you'd think she was a ballerina. A lie, fair enough. I would have done the same thing. It was pretty pathetic, I say with a laugh. Somehow, we get through dinner without a hitch. No sign of Atlas, no thoughts of last night, and Ryle and I both avoid the wine. After we're finished with our food, our waiter approaches the table. Care for dessert, he asks. I shake my head, but Alyssa perks up. What do you have? Marshall looks just as interested. We're eating for two, so we'll take anything chocolate, he says. The waiter nods, and when he walks away, Alyssa looks at Marshall. This baby is the size of a bedbug right now. You better not encourage bad habits for the next several months. The waiter returns with a dessert cart. The chef gives all expectant mothers dessert on the house, he says. Congratulations. He does? Alyssa says, perking up. Guess that's why it's called bibs, Marshall says. Chef likes the babies. We all look at the cart. Oh, God, I say, looking at the options. This is my new favorite restaurant, Alyssa says. We pick out 3 desserts for the table. The 4 of us spend the time waiting for it to be served, discussing baby names. No, Alyssa says to Marshall. We're not naming this baby after a state. But I love Nebraska, he whines. Idaho. Alyssa drops her head in her hands. This is going to be the demise of our marriage. Demise, Marshall says. That's actually a good name. Marshall's murder is thwarted by the arrival of dessert. Our waiter places a piece of chocolate cake in front of Alyssa and steps aside to make room for the waiter behind him who is holding the other 2 desserts. The waiter motions toward the guy placing our desserts down and says, the chef would like to extend his congratulations. How was the meal? The chef asks, looking at Alyssa and Marshall. By the time his eyes make it to mine, my anxiety is seeping from me. Atlas locks eyes with me, and without thinking, I blurt out, "You're the chef?" The waiter leans around Atlas and says, "The chef. The owner. Sometimes waiter, sometimes dishwasher." He gives a new meaning to hands-on. The next 5 seconds go unnoticed by everyone at our table, but they play out in slow motion to me. Atlas's eyes fall to the cut on my eye, the bandage wrapped around Ryle's hand, back to my eye. We love your restaurant, Alyssa says. You have an incredible place here. Atlas doesn't look at her. I see the roll of his throat as he swallows. His jaw hardens and he says nothing as he walks away. Shit, the waiter tries to cover for Atlas's hasty retreat by smiling and showing way too many teeth. Enjoy your dessert, he says, scuffling off to the kitchen. Bummer, Alyssa says. We find a new favorite restaurant and the chef is an asshole. Ryle laughs. Yeah, but the assholes are the best ones. Gordon Ramsay? Good point, Marshall says. I put my hand on Ryle's arm. Bathroom, I tell him. He nods as I scoot out of the booth, and Marshall says, what about Wolfgang Puck? You think he's an asshole? I walk across the restaurant, head down, fast-paced. As soon as I get into the familiar hallway, I keep going. I push open the door to the women's restroom and then turn around and lock it. Shit. Shit, 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 the look in his eye. The anger in his jaw. I'm relieved he walked away, but I'm half convinced he's probably going to be waiting outside the restaurant when we leave, ready to kick Ryle's ass. I breathe in my nose, out my mouth, wash my hands, repeat the breathing. Once I'm more calm, I dry my hands on a towel. I'll just go back out there and tell Ryle I'm not feeling well. We'll leave and we'll never come back. They all think the chef is an asshole, so that can be my excuse. I unlock the door, but I don't pull it open. It starts pushing open from the other side, so I step back. Atlas steps inside the bathroom with me and locks the door. His back rests against the door as he stares at me, focused on the cut near my eye. What happened? He asks. I shake my head. Nothing. His eyes are narrow, still ice blue but somehow burning with fire. You're lying, Lily. I muster enough of a smile to get me by. It was an accident. Atlas laughs, but then his face falls flat. Leave him. Leave him, by Jesus. He thinks this is something else entirely. I take a step forward and shake my head. He's not like that, Atlas. It wasn't like that. Ryle is a good person. He tilts his head and leans it forward a little bit. Funny. You sound just like your mother. His words sting. I immediately try to reach around him for the door, but he grabs my wrist. Leave him, Lily. I yank my hand away. I turn my back to him and inhale a deep breath. I release it slowly as I face him again. If it's any comparison at all, I'm more scared of you right now than I've ever been of him. My words make Atlas pause for a moment. His nod starts out slowly, and then gets more prominent as he steps away from the door. I certainly didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. He motions toward the door. Just trying to repay the concern you've always shown me. I stare at him for a moment, unsure how to take his words. He's still raging on the inside, I can see it. But on the outside, he's calm, collected. Allowing me to leave. I reach forward and unlock the door, then pull it open. I gasp when my eyes meet Ryle's. I quickly glance over my shoulder to see Atlas filing out of the bathroom with me. Ryle's eyes fill with confusion as he looks from me to Atlas. What the fuck, Lily? Ryle. My voice shakes. God, this looks so much worse than it is. Atlas steps around me and turns toward the doors to the kitchen, as if Ryle doesn't even exist to him. Ryle's eyes are glued to Atlas's back. Keep walking, Atlas. Right when Atlas reaches the kitchen doors, he pauses. No. Keep walking. In what becomes one of the most dreadful moments I can imagine, he spins around and strides toward Ryle, grabbing him by the collar of his shirt. Almost as soon as it happens, Ryle forces Atlas back and slams him against the opposite wall. Atlas lunges for Ryle again, this time shoving his forearm against Ryle's throat, pinning him against the wall. You touch her again and I'll cut your fucking hand off and shove it down your throat, you worthless piece of shit. Atlas, stop. I yell. Atlas releases Ryle forcefully, taking a huge step back. Ryle is breathing heavily, staring at Atlas long and hard. Then his focus moves directly to me. Atlas? He says his name with familiarity. Why is Ryle saying Atlas's name like that? Like he's heard me say it before? I've never told him about Atlas. Wait, I did, that first night on the roof. It was one of my naked truths. Ryle lets out a disbelieving laugh and points at Atlas, but he's still looking at me. This is Atlas? The homeless boy you pity fucked? Oh, God, the hallway instantly becomes a blur of fists and elbows and my screams for them to stop. Two waiters push through the door behind me and shove past me, separating them just as quickly as it started, or pushed apart against opposite walls, staring each other down, breathing heavily. I can't even look at either of them. I can't look at Atlas. Not after what Ryle just said to him. I also can't look at Ryle because he's probably thinking the absolute worst possible thing right now. Out. Atlas yells, pointing at the door, but looking at Ryle. Get the hell out of my restaurant. I meet Ryle's eyes as he begins to walk past me, scared of what I'll see in them. But there isn't any anger there, only hurt, lots of hurt. He pauses as if he's about to say something to me. But his face just twists into disappointment and he walks back out into the restaurant, finally glance up at Atlas and can see disappointment all across his face. Before I can explain away Ryle's words to him, he turns and walks away, pushing through the kitchen doors. I immediately turn and run after Ryle. He grabs his jacket from the booth and walks toward the exit without even looking at Alyssa and Marshall. Alyssa looks up at me and holds her hands up in question. I shake my head, grab my purse and say, it's a long story. We'll talk tomorrow. I follow Ryle outside and he's walking toward the parking lot. I run to catch up to him and he just stops and punches at the air. I didn't bring my fucking car, he yells, frustrated. I pull my keys out of my purse and he walks up to me and snatches them from my hand. Again, I follow him, this time to my car. I don't know what to do. I don't know if he even wants to speak to me right now. He just saw me locked in a bathroom with a guy I used to be in love with. Then, out of nowhere, that guy attacks him. God, this is so bad. When we reach my car, he heads straight for the driver's side door. He points to the passenger side and says, "Get in, Lily." He doesn't speak to me the entire time we're driving. I say his name once, but he just shakes his head like he's not ready to hear my explanation yet. When we pull into my parking garage, he gets out of the car as soon as he turns it off, like he can't get away from me fast enough. He's pacing the length of the car when I get out. It wasn't what it looked like, Ryle. I swear. He stops pacing, and when he looks at me, my heart doubles over. There's so much pain in his eyes right now, and it's not even necessary. It was all due to a stupid misunderstanding. I didn't want this, Lily, he says. I didn't want a relationship. I didn't want this stress in my life. As much as he's hurting because of what he thinks he saw, his words still piss me off. Well, then leave. What? I throw my hands up. I don't want to be your burden, Ryle. I'm so sorry my presence in your life is so unbearable. He takes a step forward. Lily, that's not at all what I'm saying. He throws his hands up in frustration and then walks past me. He leans against my car and folds his arms over his chest. There's a long stretch of silence while I wait for what he has to say. His head is down, but he lifts it slightly, looking up at me. Naked truths, Lily. That's all I want from you right now. Can you please give me that? I nod. Did you know he worked there? I purse my lips together and wrap my arm over my chest, grabbing at my elbow. Yes. That's why I didn't want to go back, Ryle. I didn't want to run into him. My answer seems to release a little of his tension. He runs a hand down his face. Did you tell him what happened last night? Did you tell him about our fight? I take a step forward and shake my head adamantly. No. He assumed. He saw my eye and your hand, and he just assumed. He blows out a laden breath and leans his head back, looking up at the roof. It looks like it's almost too painful for him to even ask the next question. Why were you alone with him in the bathroom? I take another step forward. He followed me in there. I know nothing about him now, Ryle. I didn't even know he owned that restaurant. I thought he was just a waiter. He's not a part of my life anymore, I swear. I fold my arms together and drop my voice. We both grew up in abusive households. He saw my face and your hand, and he was just worried for me. That's all it was. Ryle brings his hands up and covers his mouth. I can hear the air rushing through his fingers as he releases his breath. He stands up straight, allowing himself a moment to soak in all I've just said. My turn, he says. He pushes off the car and takes the 3 steps toward me that previously separated us. He puts both hands on my cheeks and looks me dead in the eyes. If you don't want to be with me, please tell me right now, Lily. Because when I saw you with him, that hurt. I never want to feel that again. And if it hurts this much now, I'm terrified to think of what it could do to me a year from now. I can feel the tears begin to stream down my cheeks. I place my hands on top of his and shake my head. I don't want anyone else, Ryle. I only want you. He forces the saddest smile I've ever seen on a human. He pulls me to him and holds me there. I wrap my arms around him as tight as I can as he presses his lips to the side of my head. I love you, Lily. God, I love you. I squeeze him tight, pressing a kiss to his shoulder. I love you, too. I close my eyes and wish I could wash away the entire last 2 days. Atlas is wrong about Ryle. Just wish Atlas knew he was wrong. Chapter 16. I mean. I'm not trying to be selfish, but you didn't taste the dessert, Lily. Alyssa groans. Oh, it was so good. We're never going back there, I say to her. She stomps her foot like a little kid. But nope. We have to respect your brother's feelings. She folds her arms over her chest. I know. Why did you have to be a hormonal teenager and fall in love with the best chef in Boston? He wasn't a chef when I knew him. Whatever, she says. She walks out of my office and closes the door. My phone buzzes with an incoming text. Ryle, 5 hours down. About 5 more to go. So far so good. Hand is great, I sigh, relieved. I wasn't sure if he'd be able to do the surgery today, but knowing how much he was looking forward to it makes me happy for him. Me. Steadiest hands in all of Boston. Open my laptop and check my email. The first thing I see is an inquiry from the Boston Globe. I open it and it's from a journalist interested in running an article about the store. I grin like an idiot and start emailing her back when Alyssa knocks on the door. She opens it and sticks her head in. Hey, she says, hey, I say back. She taps her fingers on the doorframe. Remember a few minutes ago when you told me I could never go back to Bibbs because it's unfair to Ryle that the boy you loved when you were a teenager is the owner? I fall back against my chair. What do you want, Alyssa? She scrunches up her nose and says, if it isn't fair that we can't go back there because of the owner, how is it fair that the owner gets to come here? What? I close my laptop and stand up. Why would you say that? Is he here? She nods and slips inside my office, closing the door behind her. He is. He asked for you. And I know you're with my brother and I'm with child, but can we please just take a moment to silently admire the perfection that is that man? She smiles dreamily and I roll my eyes at Alyssa. Those eyes, though. She opens the door and walks out. I follow behind her and catch sight of Atlas. She's right here, Alyssa says. Would you like me to take your coat? We don't take coats. Atlas glances up when I walk out of my office. His eyes cut to Alyssa and he shakes his head. No, thank you. I won't be long. Alyssa leans forward over the counter, dropping her chin on her hands. Stay as long as you like. In fact, are you looking for an extra job? Lily needs to hire more people and we're looking for someone who can lift really heavy things. Requires a lot of flexibility. Bending over. I narrow my eyes at Alyssa and mouth, enough. She shrugs innocently. I hold my door open for Atlas, but avoid looking directly at him as he passes me. I feel a world of guilt for what happened last night, but also a world of anger for what happened last night. I walk around my desk and drop into my seat, prepared for an argument. But when I look up at him, I clamp my mouth shut. He's smiling. He waves his hand around in a circle as he takes a seat across from me. This is incredible, Lily. I pause. Thank you. He continues smiling at me, like he's proud of me. Then he places a bag between us on the desk and pushes it toward me. A gift, he says. You can open it later. Why is he buying me gifts? He has a girlfriend. I have a boyfriend. Our past has already caused enough problems in my present. I certainly don't need gifts to exacerbate that. Why are you buying me gifts, Atlas? He leans back in his seat and crosses his arms over his chest. I bought it 3 years ago. I've been holding on to it in case I ever ran into you. Consider it Atlas. He hasn't changed. Damn it. I pick up the gift and set it on the floor behind my desk. I try to release some of the tension I'm feeling, but it's really hard when everything about him makes me so tense. I came here to apologize to you, he says. I wave off his apology, letting him know it isn't necessary. It's fine. It was a misunderstanding. Ryle is fine. He laughs under his breath. That's not what I'm apologizing for, he says. I'd never apologize for defending you. You weren't defending me, I say. There was nothing to defend. He tilts his head, giving me the same look that he gave me last night. The one that lets me know how disappointed in me he is. It stings deep in my gut. I clear my throat. Why are you apologizing, then? He's quiet for a moment. Contemplative. I wanted to apologize for saying that you sounded like your mother. That was hurtful. And I'm sorry. I don't know why I always feel like crying when I'm around him. When I think about him. When I read about him. It's like my emotions are still tethered to him somehow and I can't figure out how to cut the strings. His eyes drop to my desk. He reaches forward and grabs 3 things. A pen. A sticky note. My phone. He writes something down on the sticky note and then proceeds to pull my phone apart. He slips the case off and puts the sticky note between the case and the phone, then slides the cover back over it. He pushes my phone back across the desk. I look down at it and then up at him. He stands up and tosses the pen on my desk. It's my cell phone number. Keep it hidden there in case you ever need it. I wince at the gesture. The unnecessary gesture. I won't need it. I hope not. He walks to the door and reaches for the doorknob. And I know this is my only chance to get out what I have to say before he's out of my life forever. Atlas, wait. I stand up so fast, my chair scoots across the room and bumps against the wall. He half turns and faces me. What Ryle said to you last night? I bring a nervous hand up to my neck. I can feel my heart beating in my throat. I never said that to him. He was hurt and upset and he misconstrued my words from a long time ago. The corner of Atlas's mouth twitches, and I'm not sure if he's trying not to smile or trying not to frown. He faces me straight on. Believe me, Lily. I know that wasn't a pity fuck. I was there. He walks out the door, and his words knock me straight back into my seat, only, my seat is no longer there. It's still on the other side of my office and I'm now on the floor. Alyssa rushes in and I'm lying on my back behind my desk. Lily? She runs around the desk and stands over me. Are you okay? I hold up a thumb. Fine. Just missed my chair. She reaches out her hand and helps me to my feet. What was that all about? I glance at the door as I retrieve my chair. I take a seat and look down at my phone. Nothing. He was just apologizing. Alyssa sighs longingly and looks back at the door. So does that mean he doesn't want the job? I've got to hand it to her. Even in the midst of emotional turmoil, she can make me laugh. Get back to work before I dock your pay. She laughs and makes to leave. I tap my pen against my desk and then say, Alyssa. Wait. I know, she says, cutting me off. Ryle doesn't need to know about that visit. You don't have to tell me. I smile. Thank you. She closes the door. I reach down and pick up the bag with my 3-year-old gift inside of it. I pull it out and can easily tell it's a book, wrapped in tissue paper. I tear the tissue paper away and fall against the back of my chair. There's a picture of Ellen DeGeneres on the front. The title is Seriously. I'm kidding. I laugh and then open the book, gasping quietly when I see it's autographed. I run my fingers over the words of the inscription. Lily. Atlas says just keep swimming. Ellen DeGeneres. I run my finger over her signature. Then I drop the book on my desk, press my forehead against it, and fake cry against the cover. Chapter 17. It's after 7 before I get home. Ryle called an hour ago and said he wouldn't be coming over tonight. The confusher cackle, whatever that big word he used was, separation was a success, but he's staying at the hospital overnight to make sure there aren't complications. Walk in the door to my quiet apartment. I change into my quiet pajamas. I eat a quiet sandwich. And then I lie down in my quiet bedroom and open my quiet new book, hoping it can quiet my emotions. Sure enough, 3 hours and the majority of a book later, all the emotions from the last several days begin to seep out of me. I place a bookmark on the page where I stopped reading and I close it. I stare at the book for a long time. I think about Ryle. I think about Atlas. I think about how sometimes, no matter how convinced you are that your life will turn out a certain way, all that certainty can be washed away with a simple change in tide. Take the book Atlas bought me and put it in the closet with all my journals. Then I pick up the one that's filled with memories of him. And I know it's finally time to read the last entry I wrote. Then I can close the book for good. Dear Ellen, most of the time I'm thankful you don't know I exist and that I've never really mailed you any of these things I write to you, but sometimes, especially tonight, I wish you did. I just need someone to talk to about everything I'm feeling. It's been 6 months since I've seen Atlas and I honestly don't know where he is or how he's doing. So much has happened since the last letter I wrote to you, when Atlas moved to Boston. I thought it was the last time I'd see him for a while, but it wasn't. I saw him again after he left, several weeks later. It was my 16th birthday, and when he showed up, it became the absolute best day of my life, and then the absolute worst. It had been exactly 42 days since Atlas left for Boston. I counted every day like it would help somehow. I was so depressed, Ellen. I still am. People say that teenagers don't know how to love like an adult. Part of me believes that, but I'm not an adult and so I have nothing to compare it to. But I do believe it's probably different. I'm sure there's more substance in the love between two adults than there is between two teenagers. There's probably more maturity, more respect, more responsibility. But no matter how different the substance of a love might be at different ages in a person's life, I know that love still has to weigh the same. You feel that weight on your shoulders and in your stomach and on your heart no matter how old you are. And my feelings for Atlas are very heavy. Every night I cry myself to sleep and I whisper, just keep swimming. But it gets really hard to swim when you feel like you're anchored in the water. Now that I think about it, I've probably been experiencing the stages of grief in a sense. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I was deep in the depression stage the night of my 16th birthday. My mother had tried to make the day a good one. She bought me gardening supplies, made my favorite cake, and the two of us went to dinner together. But by the time I had crawled into bed that night, I couldn't shake the sadness. I was crying when I heard the tap on my window. At first, I thought it had started raining. But then I heard his voice. I jumped up and ran to the window, my heart in hysterics. He was standing there in the dark, smiling at me. I raised the window and helped him inside, and he took me in his arms and held me there for so long while I cried. He smelled so good. I could tell when I hugged him that he'd put on some much-needed weight in just the 6 weeks since I'd last seen him. He pulled back and wiped the tears off my cheeks. "Why are you crying, Lily?" I was embarrassed that I was crying. I cried a lot that month, probably more than any other month of my life. It was probably just the hormones of being a teenage girl, mixed with the stress of how my father treated my mother, and then having to say goodbye to Atlas. Grabbed a shirt from the floor and dried my eyes, then we sat down on the bed. He pulled me against his chest and leaned against my headboard. "What are you doing here?" I asked him. "It's your birthday," he said. "And you're still my favorite person. And I've missed you." It was probably no later than 10 o'clock when he got there, but we talked so much, I remember it was after midnight the next time I looked at the clock. I can't even remember what all we talked about, but I do remember how I felt. He seemed so happy and there was a light in his eyes that I'd never seen there before. Like he'd finally found his home. He said he wanted to tell me something and his voice grew serious. He readjusted me so that I was straddling his lap, because he wanted me to look him in the eyes when he told me. I was thinking maybe he was about to tell me he had a girlfriend or that he was leaving even sooner for the military. But what he said next shocked me. He said the first night he went to that old house, he wasn't there because he needed a place to stay. He went there to kill himself. My hands went up to my mouth because I had no idea things had gotten that bad for him. So bad that he didn't even want to live anymore. "I hope you never know what it's like to feel that lonely, Lily," he said. He went on to tell me that the first night he was at that house, he was sitting in the living room floor with a razor blade to his wrist. Right when he was about to use it, my bedroom light went on. "You were standing there like an angel, backlit by the light of heaven," he said. "I couldn't take my eyes off you." He watched me walk around my bedroom for a while. Watched me lie on the bed and write in my journal. And he put down the razor blade because he said it had been a month since life had given him any sort of feeling at all, and looking at me gave him a little bit of feeling. Enough to not be numb enough to end things that night. Then a day or two later is when I took him the food and set it on his back porch. "I guess you already know the rest of that story. You saved my life, Lily," he said to me. "And you weren't even trying." He leaned forward and kissed that spot between my shoulder and my neck that he always kisses. I liked that he did it again. I don't like much about my body, but that spot on my collarbone has become my favorite part of me. He took my hands in his and told me he was leaving sooner than he planned for the military, but that he couldn't leave without telling me thank you. He told me he'd be gone for 4 years and that the last thing he wanted for me was to be a 16-year-old girl not living my life because of a boyfriend I never got to see or hear from. The next thing he said made his blue eyes tear up until they looked clear. He said, "Lily, life is a funny thing. We only get so many years to live it, so we have to do everything we can to make sure those years are as full as they can be. We shouldn't waste time on things that might happen someday, or maybe even never." I knew what he was saying. That he was leaving for the military and he didn't want me to hold on to him while he was gone. He wasn't really breaking up with me because we weren't ever really together. We'd just been two people who helped each other when we needed it and got our hearts fused together along the way. It was hard, being let go by someone who had never really grabbed hold of me completely in the first place. In all the time we've spent together, I think we both sort of knew this wasn't a forever thing. I'm not sure why, because I could easily love him that way. I think maybe under normal circumstances, if we were together like typical teenagers and he had an average life with a home, we could be that kind of couple. The kind who comes together so easily and never experiences a life where cruelty sometimes intercepts. Didn't even try to get him to change his mind that night. I feel like we have the kind of connection that even the fires of hell couldn't sever. I feel like he could go spend his time in the military and I'll spend my years being a teenager, and then it will all fall back into place when the timing is right. "I'm going to make a promise to you," he said. "When my life is good enough for you to be a part of it, I'll come find you. But I don't want you to wait around for me, because that might never happen." I didn't like that promise, because it meant one of two things. Either he thought he might never make it out of the military alive, or he didn't think his life would ever be good enough for me. His life was already good enough for me, but I nodded my head and forced a smile. "If you don't come back for me, I'll come for you. And it won't be pretty, Atlas Corrigan." He laughed at my threat. "Well, it won't be too hard to find me. You know exactly where I'll be." I smiled. "Where everything is better." He smiled back. "In Boston." And then he kissed me. "Ellen, I know you're an adult and know all about what comes next, but I still don't feel comfortable telling you what happened over those next couple of hours. Let's just say we both kissed a lot. We both laughed a lot. We both loved a lot. We both breathed a lot. A lot. And we both had to cover our mouths and be as quiet and still as we could so we wouldn't get caught. When we were finished, he held me against him, skin to skin, hand to heart. He kissed me and looked straight in my eyes. "I love you, Lily. Everything you are. I love you." I know those words get thrown around a lot, especially by teenagers. A lot of times prematurely and without much merit. But when he said them to me, I knew he wasn't saying it like he was in love with me. It wasn't that kind of "I love you." Imagine all the people you meet in your life. There are so many. They come in like waves, trickling in and out with the tide. Some waves are much bigger and make more of an impact than others. Sometimes the waves bring with them things from deep in the bottom of the sea, and they leave those things tossed onto the shore. Imprints against the grains of sand that prove the waves had once been there, long after the tide recedes. That was what Atlas was telling me when he said "I love you." He was letting me know that I was the biggest wave he'd ever come across. And I brought so much with me that my impressions would always be there, even when the tide rolled out. After he said he loved me, he told me he had a birthday present for me. He pulled out a small brown bag. It isn't much, but it's all I could afford. I opened the bag and pulled out the best present I'd ever received. It was a magnet that said Boston on the top. At the bottom in tiny letters, it said "Where everything is better." I told him I would keep it forever, and every time I look at it I'll think of him. When I started out this letter, I said my 16th birthday was one of the best days of my life. Because up until that second, it was the next few minutes that weren't. Before Atlas had shown up that night, I wasn't expecting him, so I didn't think to lock my bedroom door. My father heard me in there talking to someone, and when he threw open my door and saw Atlas in bed with me, he was angrier than I'd ever seen him. And Atlas was at a disadvantage by not being prepared for what came next. I'll never forget that moment for as long as I live. Being completely helpless as my father came down on him with a baseball bat. The sound of bones snapping was the only thing piercing through my screams. Still don't know who called the police. I'm sure it was my mother, but it's been 6 months and we still haven't talked about that night. By the time the police got to my bedroom and pulled my father off of him, I didn't even recognize Atlas. He was covered in so much blood. I was hysterical. Not only did they have to take Atlas away in an ambulance, they also had to call an ambulance for me because I couldn't breathe. It was the first and only panic attack I've ever had, and oh, one would tell me where he was or if he was even okay. My father wasn't even arrested for what he'd done. Word got out that Atlas had been staying in that old house and that he had been homeless. My father became revered for his heroic act, saving his little girl from the homeless boy who manipulated her into having sex with him. My father said I'd shamed our whole family by giving the town something to gossip about. And let me tell you, they still gossip about it. I heard Katie on the bus today telling someone she tried to warn me about Atlas. She said she knew he was bad news from the moment she laid eyes on him. Which is crap. If Atlas had been on the bus with me, I probably would have kept my mouth shut and been mature about it like he tried to teach me to be. Instead, I was so angry, I turned around and told Katie she could go to hell. I told her Atlas was a better human than she'd ever be, and if I ever heard her say one more bad thing about him, she'd regret it. She just rolled her eyes and said, "Jesus, Lily. Did he brainwash you? He was a dirty, thieving homeless kid who was probably on drugs. He used you for food and sex, and now you're defending him?" She's lucky the bus stopped at my house right then. I grabbed my backpack and walked off the bus, then went inside and cried in my room for 3 hours straight. Now my head hurts, but I knew the only thing that would make me feel better is if I finally got it all out on paper. I've been avoiding writing this letter for 6 months now. No offense, Ellen, but my head still hurts. So does my heart. Maybe even more right now than it did yesterday. This letter didn't help one damn bit. I think I'm going to take a break from writing to you for a while. Writing to you reminds me of him, and it all hurts too much. Until he comes back for me, I'm just going to keep pretending to be okay. I'll keep pretending to swim, when really all I'm doing is floating. Barely keeping my head above water. Lily, I flip to the next page, but it's blank. That was the last time I ever wrote to Ellen. Also never heard from Atlas again, and a huge part of me never blamed him. He almost died at the hands of my father. There's not much room for forgiveness there. I knew he survived and that he was okay, because my curiosity has sometimes gotten the best of me over the years, and I'd find what I could about him online. There wasn't much, though. Enough to let me know he'd survived and that he was in the military. I still never got him out of my head, though. Time made things better, but sometimes I would see something that would remind me of him and it would put me in a funk. It wasn't until I was in college for a couple of years and dating someone else that I realized maybe Atlas wasn't supposed to be my whole life. Maybe he was only supposed to be a part of it. Maybe love isn't something that comes full circle. It just ebbs and flows, in and out, just like the people in our lives. On a particularly lonely night in college, I went alone to a tattoo studio and had a heart put in the spot where he used to kiss me. It's a tiny heart, about the size of a thumbprint, and it looks just like the heart he carved for me out of the oak tree. It's not fully closed at the top, and I wonder if Atlas carved the heart like that on purpose. Because that's how my heart feels every time I think about him. It just feels like there's a little hole in it, letting out all the air.